this video, I'm going to teach you everything I know about getting high grades. And when I mean high, I mean like really high, like above 95 to 100 grades while barely studying in grade 11, so in high school, where like your grades actually matter. First of all, like why should you trust me? I have a 97 overall average right now, I think. High 97. It's like 97.44 or something. Across all my subjects in grade 11, I have like math 30. What else do I have? Yes, so obviously all the obvious ones, the social, LA, chemistry, bio. I'm not taking physics. And across all of these, the main core subjects, because I take French, but I didn't give a shit about French, so I dropped like an 80 in that. But across all of those, my average is around 97, which is very, very good, very, very high. And another thing I did was barely study at all. So the only times I would study for tests is probably the night before the test for about an hour or 2 hours. For some social tests, I didn't even study. I went in, I winged it. For all of my LA, I went in and winged it. Actually, my LA, but yeah, the point is, obviously not to like suck my own dick or anything. I'm just like trying to like prove ethos, right? So y'all can trust me. I have very high grades and I don't study that much. And I'm going to try and teach you guys some things that help me to get high grades while not studying that much. That way you can free up time for your own life. Yeah, because just so you know, like I'm wearing a blanket because it's kind of cold. I just cold showered and I'm still like feeling like the after effects. You can probably tell because my hair is a little wet, but let's get going. So the first thing I want you to know, it's not really a tip, but it's just like an insight, that there is the law of diminishing returns that applies here, okay? The law of diminishing returns is basically the harder you work, the less rewards you get. So what I mean by this is basically if I study 1 hour, maybe that gets my grade up to like an 80, okay? If I study 2 hours, maybe that gets my grade up to like a 90, okay? If I study 3 hours, maybe that gets my grade up to like a 90, like 3. If I study 4 hours, maybe that gets it to like a 95. If I study 5 hours, maybe it gets it to like a 96, yada, yada, yada. You can see how like the closer you get to like the 100, the more effort and time you have to put into study. So obviously, like, that's the time I gave was just like an example to show that, right? But basically what I mean by this is I think that you should study the amount that gets you the highest ROI, because like studying that extra like 3 hours to bump your grade up from like a 95 to like a 97, I just think isn't worth your time. Like, yeah, it's like cool, it's nice, it's a higher grade, it is, right? But that is it like really worth the extra 3 hours for the extra 2%? I don't really think so. I think there's better things you can do with your time. Obviously, if you're like a gooner and you waste your day, the whole day, you can't really like, this advice doesn't really apply to you because, it's not like that time is going to good use. But if you're anything like me and you got like businesses, you got like other aspirations you're trying to work on, right? It's like YouTube, for example, that 3 hours might actually be important. So you're going to try not to waste it. So basically what this is this is Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, right? I suggest you study the 20% that gets you 80% of the results that you want. So it's not going to be the perfect grade. If your perfect grade is like okay, for example, my perfect grade is like a 100 or a 99, okay? Obviously, kind of unachievable, but whatever. That's my idea of a perfect grade. Maybe because like, I grew up Asian, my parents like beat the shit out of me if I get a bad grade. So that's my idea of a perfect grade, okay? But in order to get that 99, 100, 98, that's like super, super hard, like unbelievably hard. So I'd probably have to study at least like 5 times more than I'm studying right now to get that like 99, to get that 100, because I have to cover, like make sure I make no mistakes, right? And I just think that's like a huge waste of time, right? Studying an extra like 10 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours across the week when I could be using that time on YouTube, I just think isn't worth my time. So instead, I only study like the 1 hour, the 2 hour across the whole week. That gets me like a very, very good and a very acceptable 97 that I'm very, very happy with. Obviously I might be an extreme example. Like a more realistic example is like maybe studying the 20%. So the 1 hour, the 2 hour, the 5 hours gets you like an 85 or like a 90. But you could get like a 95, like a 97, like my sort of grade if you study like 30 hours. So yeah, I just want to get that concept out of the way that I think you should only be studying the 20% that gives you 80% of the results just to like maximize your studying ROI. The second thing I want to talk about is sort of foundational. Okay, so this sort of like determines like the difference in like, I don't want to say intelligence. No, it's not intelligence, but like, grade, like book smart. Okay, is I think all about foundations. If you studied well and hard in previous times and you get your brain to like sort of think in a certain way, the subjects you're learning are going to be easier. Cuz okay, like obviously, let's say me and some dumbass study the same amount of time, okay? Like me and the dumbass both study an hour for the social test. Except in the past, I've always studied like for social tests and I've always had a high grade in social and I like, read the daily news and I practice writing my stuff. All these other things. Even though me and this dumbass studied the same amount, I'm going to get a higher grade because I have like this foundation, this like base that I'm working on. Whereas this dumbass who maybe didn't study like in their previous years and like kind of fucked around, like doesn't have this like sort of foundation, right? I think foundation and base of knowledge is very important. Especially also like with math, right? With math, it always like builds on top of each other. So if you don't have prior knowledge, it's like really hard to like go on. So this isn't really like a practical tip. I'm just trying to get all like the wishy-washy like concepts out of the way. But I'm just saying like it is better and it is easier if you have like a good base and a good foundation. Like you studied before in the past and you were a good student in the past. It is going to be harder. Like you are like expect to study more if you were kind of like a dumbass retard in the past. And just now you're thinking like, oh no, it's grade 12. Like university's coming up. So now I got to study more. You know what I'm saying? So just like expect that. Okay, so now let's actually get to the meat and bones of why you came to this video. I'm going to give you some specific, practical, applicable things you can do to study more effectively. The first thing I want to talk about is active recall. So active recall is the number one best way, head honcho method of studying and retaining information. The reason it is the number one best way is because it aligns perfectly entirely with the way your brain like aligns neurons or some shit. This is very scientifically proven, but I cannot give you the explanation because I'm sort of like I'm like a dumbass. Okay, so you just go search up like Andrew Huberman, active recall, or Andrew Huberman studying tips, and you can just go watch his podcast. Andrew Huberman, if you don't know, he's like a neuroscientist, super smart, gives like like lifestyle tips and shit. But okay, what is active recall? Active recall, as said in the name, is when you actively recall information from your head without assistance from an outside source. Now, what this looks like is like, it looks like you just sit here and you just think like, what is this? What I learned in math today? Oh, I learned this, I learned that, this and this are interconnected. Oh, remember this thing is that, yada, yada, yada. You just pull information from your brain. It is the most effective. Remember, it aligns like, it's like the best for strengthening your neuron connections. But if you want the science explanation, remember, go search it up. Now, there are a few ways of applying active recall. Because I used to study like hella ineffectively. And the way I did this is because I just reread my notes. I wouldn't like rewrite anything. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't like fucking like blurt or some shit. I just look at my notes and I just read, look away, read until I just have everything memorized in my head. And like this worked. Yeah, definitely. I did like end up memorizing the information. But it did not make a lasting connection in my brain that was like deep. So I'd always forget the information like 2 days after. And so for the final, I'd have to relearn everything. I think active recall is the way you like really make really, really strong like neuron connections. And you really just strengthen these ideas in your memory so that they actually like last for a very long time and are very like close. And you understand them at a very like deep and intimate level because it's like sort of you synthesizing this information now. Okay, but how exactly do you active recall? The exact method that I have used is through flashcards. So this is exactly what I do. I write down everything I know about every topic in that unit. So there's like a unit, let's say it's a unit test I'm studying for. I'll write down every single topic inside of that unit. I will then, like off the top of my memory, right? And all the topics that I didn't remember, I will write down in a red pen. So normally I write in a pencil, I'll write them down in a red pen to indicate that like I didn't remember them. I had to look back on my notes to actually remember them. Then I will flip the flashcards over and write everything I remember about each of those specific topics. And then once I'm done that, I will then look at my notes again and then what will I do? Oh yeah, I will look at my notes again, and then anything I missed, I will also write in a red pen. Then, when I look at my flashcards, I will I'll look at the flashcard and I'll try and repeat every single thing about that like topic that's written on the flashcard. I'll try and repeat everything, try and remember everything that's related to that. If I don't know anything, I'll flip it over and then I'll actually read it, right? And then usually the things that I don't remember, I'll take a blue pen and I'll underline them to make it like super clear that these are the things that I didn't remember. I think writing it in a separate pen and also like underlining in a blue pen is really important because interaction with your material is how you build stronger neuron connections as well. So you want to actually interact with the things you didn't remember, because the more you interact with it, the more you make it special, and the more you like actually just like think about this thing, whether it be like actually thinking about it or like making a note of it with your different colored pens. It's gonna like your brain is gonna go like, oh yeah, that thing is special, we should like probably prioritize that and put more effort towards memorizing that because it's something that we haven't actually memorized yet. So I think I have an example. The next step is that once you have completely memorized the flashcard, so that's usually like if you have read the flashcard 3 times, and 3 times is a little extreme. It depends on you, okay? Usually I only do it like once or twice, but once you're able to completely memorize the flashcard, you put it in like the done pile. So that is the done pile. And all the ones you weren't completely able to memorize, you put it in the undone pile. And then you only cycle through the ones in the undone pile. And basically you do that until everything's in the done pile. Then you have everything memorized and you can just go fuck around and do something else. The best part about this is you can also reuse these flashcards for studying for like finals, right? So that is like so blessed, because I think rewriting notes, the memorization comes from actually writing them. So you don't get any more assistance from it from the finals. Like maybe you get like a little, but for flashcards, you write these down, and anytime you want to relearn that whole unit, it's just like repeat the flashcard cycle. Now, like I'm not gonna lie, like quick disclaimer, I did not use flashcards that often. It's the most effective, but I only use flashcards when I actually like super needed it. So there was like a topic I knew nothing about, or I didn't listen that much in school, yada yada yada. For a lot of topics for me, a lot of them I just like winged it. Like for a lot of social unit tests, because they're all source analysis, so it's not even like you can study for them. I just be like, nah, fuck it. I'm not gonna like go memorizing all the dates when the dates aren't even gonna be like needed, right? So I just like go in the unit test and like fuck around. Same thing with LA, because reading comp you can't really study for. So active recall and these memorization tips only really help for like the sciences, maybe math, not really, and for social tests that are like really like require a lot of memorization. So that is the one way of studying. That is the best way to study. Some other examples of active recall include like, I don't know the name, but I'm gonna call it flashback reading. That doesn't make sense, but it's basically when you read something, it's like rereading your notes, right? So this is like a quicker thing that I did to just like when I needed like only like a little boost. I didn't need to like memorize the whole thing. I would like read my notes, like a whole section or a whole page. I try and think about everything that then I like close the book, okay? Yeah, this might be called closed book method, but I have no clue. You close a book and then you try and like repeat everything you just read. You open it again, everything you missed, you underline in red, or you put a star next to it, whatever. You interact with that and you keep going until you have the page memorized. You go on. That's like another way of active recall. You can sort of like meld these to like your own life, right? So you can just think about how to apply active recall to like your own ways of studying. There's like blurting as well. So all of these things, as long as they involve some form of active recall, will work really effectively for you. I want to talk about a mindset that you should have. And this is something my older brother actually taught me. So basically, I remember one time I was like a little fucking jit. I was like 10 or something. I asked my brother like, how do you get like do better in school or something? And one thing he said to me that really resonated with me is that you should focus as much in school as possible so that you don't have to study at home. And that really resonates, because if you think about it, when you're in school, you can't really do other work, right? Like if you're in school and the teacher's literally giving a fucking lecture, you can't like open your laptop and go do work. The teacher's gonna yell at you. Even if you're like trying to do work, it's like kind of difficult because it's like a school environment. Like maybe your friends are there or something and everyone else is doing like math problems and you're sitting here on your laptop fucking grinding out a course, bro. Like what the fuck, right? So if you can't really do at home work at school, and if you can't maximize that, you might as well spend all your time in school doing schoolwork, so that way when you go home you don't have any schoolwork to do and you're completely free to just like work on the things you want to work on. So I like kind of like hopped off the gas of this a bit in grade 11 because in grade 11 I enjoyed talking to my friends a little more in school, which is like fine, right? But the biggest example of this I have is me in grade 10. So when I was in grade 10, I was unbelievably locked the fuck in. And like I was so locked in, I can literally like tell you what I did. Every single lunch, the school's like close to a cafe. Every single lunch, I would walk from the school I went to this cafe and try and grind out like 30 minutes extra of work instead of like hanging out with my friends or anything. And then during like any break time or some shit, I just like try and be working as much as possible. So that way, when I got out of school, I wouldn't have any work to get done. Whereas like other people, they might have homework that was given through the thing. They might have like worksheets or they might have to study. I'd basically already be done all of those things. I'd have more time during the, like my day. This video is ending up very, very long. God damn. Sorry guys, I'll try and like speedrun it, okay? So now I'm gonna talk about a bit more specific things, the exact ways I study for math and social and LA. Okay, so the exact way I study for math. Obviously math, it's not really memorization. Math is all about like just being careful and not making dumb mistakes. Because a lot of us can do the math, okay? And know how to do the math, know the concepts, and know everything. It's all about just like preventing stupid, dumb, retarded mistakes. Like, my 7s look like 2s or some shit like that. So the way you do this is to know yourself. Okay, so first of all, every single math problem you ever get wrong, I would recommend you take like a blank piece of paper and you write down the reason why you got that mistake. Okay, whether it be like just a dumb mistake or you forgot a concept or you misread the question, yada yada yada. Write down your mistakes, because writing down your mistakes, it's like the same way in active recall. It calls your attention to them, and then for future questions, you have like this subconscious like protector, because you put more attention on this thing that will help you prevent these mistakes. So every single time in math, when you do a problem and you make a mistake, I'd recommend you write it down. Write down like the reason on like a blank sheet of paper. And I'm not gonna lie, that's basically it. That's like all I did for math. Like I maybe I'm good at math, who knows, okay? But that's basically all I did for math, and I just do like, because your teacher's gonna give you worksheets, right, that you practice. I just maybe practice with a few worksheets before every single unit test, and I got a very high grade. Math is one of the units where having a good foundation is really, really important. So like, I'm not gonna lie to you, like I do have a pretty good foundation. I had high math grades in grade 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, yada yada yada. So yeah, like it is one of the ones where foundation is important. What you learned last year is like important now. But yeah, that's basically like the only thing I can tell you for math. I also made study sheets for math like every now and then in class, but I only made them for a few units. I guess they kind of helped. So the study sheets is basically just like I wrote down all the core concepts and things that I think I would forget, and anything that I thought I would forget or that I thought was important, I'd like star with a purple highlighter. So like what this looks like is, for example, like trigonometry grade 10. This just came to me, right? Like double identities. Are they called double identities? No, it's called the ambiguous case. So grade 10 trigonometry called the ambiguous case. That would be something that I would like write down. You know, if you don't know what it is, search it up. I'm sorry if you're like in grade 7 and you can't understand that. But I would write down like on my piece of paper, like, don't forget the ambiguous case, right? Or like, don't forget B is the y-intercept or some shit like that. Just the stuff I tend to forget. I'd highlight in a purple highlighter, and that also helped me like make less stupid mistakes. For LA, from my personal experience, I think a lot of it is like kind of sucking up to the teacher, because if the teacher likes you, they come in with your like essays shit and your shit with like a precognitive bias. So if I write down some like fancy schmancy bullshit on my writing assignment, if my teacher already thinks I'm smart, she's gonna go into my writing assignment being like, oh, Ivan's so smart. And then if she reads something that's like a little like in the gray, she's gonna be like leaning more towards the smart side. Okay, I'm assuming it's a she, but I've never had a male LA teacher, so I'm gonna just call it a she. She might like assume that like she might like lean a little like this way and be like, oh yeah, like, you know, he's pretty smart, right? He wouldn't be the one to say like something super retarded or something. This is probably like makes sense, right? They come in with a sort of like this precognitive bias, which is why I think you should make your LA teachers like semi like you. Obviously, you do that like you by raising your hand, answering questions every now and then, interacting with your teacher, yada yada yada. I think interaction in the classroom, like, you know, all your teachers say it's so important, and you always think that it's like bullshit, but it actually helps a lot. Like interacting in the classroom, answering questions, yada yada yada, asking questions when you need help, especially. Um, but like obviously that's just like a small part of it, okay? Like not, your teachers are like fairly like unbiased. There's only like a little bit of the cognitive bias. The main thing I can recommend for LA is to read fiction, not fiction, sorry, read books that align with what you're studying. So if you're studying like any Shakespeare, right? Shakespeare has a very particular way of studying, of writing. I would recommend you read more things like Shakespeare. So the way I found this out was during the finals. Because as part, this wasn't even related, but as part of my self-improvement journey, I've been reading Meditations. Now, Meditations is by Marcus Aurelius, this fucking like Greek guy, bro. So he writes hella Shakespearean. Like he is more Shakespeare than Shakespeare is. And I was been reading that for like the last like month before my LA final. And then when the LA final came, there was this like Shakespeare poem that everyone thought was super, super hard. They thought it was like the hardest like reading comprehension thing. They thought all the questions were super difficult. But I literally, like, I kid you not, I thought that one was so easy. I thought that was like the easiest one. Like I went in reading that poem, understanding every single thing they talked about. And when I went to answer the questions, I was like, well, obviously it's this one. What's this one? Duh, it's this one. He says it right here. And I think that's entirely due to the fact that I've been reading Meditations beforehand. And since Meditations was so Shakespearean and I've been trying to understand it, it made me way better understanding Shakespeare. So read books that are like similar to the stuff you might actually find in LA. So that also means like, short stories, right? A lot of LA like reading comprehensions are going to have like those like sort of like weird little like short stories. You can read stuff like that. So that's like more from like the 1980s, the 1900s. You can read books like that and then you'll probably get way better at analyzing those short stories. For like writing assignments, my only recommendation is just like, because a lot of us are bad writers. I'm actually like low key like a bad writer. Like I like grammatically and like, so I can like 100% guarantee you it's really hard to like give yourself an 100% on like the way you write, because everyone's gonna make like dumbass writing mistakes, right? The thing I would recommend is there's the other half. So half of it is like your actual writing, but the other half is like your message or like what you actually talked about, like the content. Make your content as good as possible. And the way you do this is you talk about everything that might be insightful. Okay, don't leave anything out. Talk about everything that might be insightful, even if it doesn't make that much sense to you. Because if you include everything, all the information, all these interconnected details, even if they're not true, even if it's not what the author like intended, it still makes you look smart, and it still makes you look like introspective and like intimate with the reading material. So those are just some of my like LA tips. And then lastly, for social's like a common sense unit. Like the more common sense you have, the more like street smart you are, the better you're going to do in social. Like even I'm not like source analysis, like I'm not that good at as well. Like the only thing I can really say for social that's helped me like consistently is that you always look for like the middle ground, okay? So if the answers in social are like, this person always does this country always does this country never does this country is very like ultra nationalistic or something. Yeah, I doxed myself, but you look for the ends of the extreme. So if there's ever like an extreme answer, it's probably not true. And that's because social is all about like finding middle ground, balancing, looking at multiple perspectives. So social really hates like the extremes. So whenever you see an answer that's in the extremes, this person never does this person always does this, you can know probably that they're usually not the right ones. It's kind of difficult to give school tips because everyone's education system is different, but these are just all the things that have helped me personally. This video is getting super long and there's more stuff I want to keep yapping about. Maybe I make like a part 2 in the future, but for now I'm just going to end it because it's actually getting ridiculously fucking long. Like I did not expect it to take this fucking long, but that's basically it. Thanks. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.